People of Earth, welcome to Will AI Snap That? I am your host, Michael Rollins, and I am joined by my co-host, Thanos, he of the Snapdom. Today, we will be helping you curry favor with our AI robotic overlords as you ride our coattails. We shall try to get in good with them so that in the future, when humans are completely replaceable, you can still hang around in luxury and joy. Thanos, how are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great today. I have a smoothie of pineapple and caviar juice that
Oh
I'm going to
my
be sipping
God, the
from
hell
in
you
here.
do. I have, unfortunately, I failed on that follow up item. I have not tried pineapple and caviar. I did mention it to a few folks, and everybody was like, "Oh, that might actually be good." So
It's going to be like Hawaiian pizza. It's like
I
people
think
are going to love
so.
it or they're going to hate it.
I think so. Though I honestly have only had caviar a couple times in my life. I know nothing about it. And I'm terrified that if I just go pick a random caviar off the shelf at the grocery store, that I will unfortunately be given a sideways kind of caviar that completely ruins the joy of the dish. So we'll see.
Yeah, I cannot say that I'm a connoisseur enough to tell you the fine caviar from the less fine. Like if you get the
Right.
$40 one or the $200 one, that I can tell a difference. But I would say mildly salty and mildly fishy and kind of delicious.
Okay. All right. All right.
So
Well,
it does seem that it would complement pineapple very naturally. I'm going to stick
I
to that.
think you're right. So, all right, we're gonna once again we will punt this down the road to try. Along with we will punt Chad down the road because I have not attempted to get him into the chat again. We do have one more follow up item, which is the Zelda game. So I had mentioned last time that I was going to give instructions to the to O3 Mini High from ChatGPT to build a Zelda game, and it was it didn't do it, but it did more than I expected it to do. And I went on to adapt that to turn it into a asteroids like game with physics and enemies that come after you. And it was actually really fun.
You're going to
like
have to record a video of that
so
and pop it on
one
the
thing I was
channel.
thinking is I can't remember if willaisnapthat.com is up and running. I need to put it up there, but I actually think I'm going to start linking all these games to it because they're really just kind of interesting to play around with. So I'll
What tool
see.
did you use to build it?
I told O3 Mini High, build me a game that does this in a single HTML page using HTML, JavaScript, and CSS.
Nice. I finally took the leap and jumped out of the PyCharm, WebStorm, Golang universe of JetBrains and moved over to Cursor, which has done wonderful things to my muscle memory of like I can't navigate if my life depended on it. But I'm getting there. It's been like a week and change. But their agentic mode of creating stuff is absolutely unbelievable. You could just say, "Hey, I want this. Boop, 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 boop. Here's some files. Check the diffs out. Give it some directions." And then sometimes it just loses it. And I build one feature and I want to build a similar feature to that, and it just couldn't, for the life of it, figure it out. But
I
promising, very promising.
I tried Cursor and was really put off by the fact that I pay $200 a month for the best chat GPT I can get. And it's worth every penny. And I really want it in my IDE, but then I have to pay $10 or $20 a month to get less good chat GPT and Claude and whatnot in
I
my.
think you're getting better GPT for what it's intended because it uses
Okay.
Claude Sonnet, which is pretty good for the coding stuff.
All
I
right.
don't think the reasoning chain of thought of O1 Pro is going to be that good because I want to type something in. I don't want to wait 4 minutes till I get my code.
But
And
that's
when
why,
you messed up the import and I want to say, no, no, the import has one less thing in the path, I don't want to wait 4 minutes for
right.
that.
Well, the O3 Mini High is almost instantaneous. So
Yeah, but is
with,
that is O3 Mini High part of O1 Pro subscription or is that its own thing?
it is. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So you should have access to it. You
No, I
also
have
get
access to it. I wasn't aware if I canceled O1 Pro, does that what else does that kill?
Oh, no, no, no. If you cancel the $200 subscription, you still have access to the majority of the models. You just have limits if
Okay.
you go to the $20 model. But then there's also the, what is it? I probably don't even need to go over this, but there's now the new research assistant from ChatGPT that you do get access to with the Pro subscription.
That's the one
And
that controls your web browser, right?
no, this is different. It's actually a true research assistant.
Oh,
You
not
go
operator.
in, it's not operator. It's only available on the site, I believe. But you go in, you have it, you give it, I want to know everything I can know about this. And it says, great, check back in a few hours. And it goes out and it finds everything it can. It's very similar to Notebook, except that it seeds itself as opposed to Notebook LM. You have to go actually like get the individual things you're interested in learning from.
I
So
think we'll file for a new episode. Will AI replace research
I like it.
assistants?
Yes, absolutely. In the future. Okay.
Yeah,
S-
maybe a short one, according to what we just found out.
Yeah, right. Except it still lies. So
What do
Thanos
we
today.
have queued up for today?
Yeah. Anybody that has come in probably came in through the title of Will AI Replace God? And we talked long and hard about this one because it's a little bit controversial. What's your thinking on this topic?
Just a touch, I believe. I don't think there's a high chance of
Skosh.
offending anyone.
Skosh. Yeah.
No, seriously, I think it's an interesting topic. There's different ways to look at it, and I don't think we're going into scratch that. It's an interesting topic. I think it will make for some fun discussion.
Yeah, so I do want to preface it with neither Thanos nor I believe that AI will replace God. And for whatever that word means to you. However, it is really an interesting question as a gateway into deeper human experiences. And so we're not necessarily looking to say that, ChatGPT is going to replace Jesus. What we're actually looking into is ChatGPT going to have an impact on kind of the traditional behaviors of folks that are religious.
I think there's some interesting topics in sort of starting from some of the core aspects of religion. Maybe we'll talk about things such
Yeah.
as, does AI do anything similar to maybe what prayer does or something like that? Maybe then we can chat about some things like companionship and are there any aspects of the social aspects of religion that AI will fill in? Again, this is not necessarily for people that are religious, but like, is there some overlap there? Maybe there's some aspects about like advice and something you go for getting ideas of how to live your life. And maybe like the counter of that is it going to be at some point where it doesn't give you advice but it gives you commandments,
Mhm.
and is AI more like 1984 style going to be telling you what to do at some point in time?
Yeah.
So I think that could be an interesting way to poke at it.
So I think the first like behavior or idea that we want to poke at is people pray. People in religion tend to pray. It is in various ways a form of meditation, a somewhat one-sided or two-sided conversation, depending on your religious bent. And so, but the idea is it is a conversation, and it is often a conversation about heavy life issues or outcomes that you would like to see. And I mean, it seems to me that there's a lot of that aspect in AI. It doesn't necessarily have religious overtones, but there's a like if you're engaging with a chatbot and asking a chatbot, how do I I need to make more money. How do I go make more money? There's actually a lot of similarity to prayer there. Like
Well, I think for some people that might be the question, but I think for most people, is my perception of what people pray for. That's generally kind of like probably helps them straighten their thoughts out, right? As you verbalize something, or even inside your head or not, right? You're taking some thoughts and putting them into sort of a form of speech, right? So in some ways, you're sort of clarifying your thoughts, and perhaps doing the same thing with a chatbot is going to give you similar results, right? So you're going and sort of expressing yourself. It's kind of like keeping a diary, writing things down.
Mhm.
And in this case, the chatbot will more visibly talk back, right? If you doing some form of prayer, and
More
again, this is not
visibly.
something I engage in, but
Yeah.
people that do pray, right? They can have a conversation, and it's is it something divine talking back to them, or is it their own thoughts get clarified and new thoughts come in their head, divinely
Yeah.
inspired or not, but like they get some outcome out of it, that is perhaps fresh thinking in
Mhm.
some ways, right? So with the AI, that's just definitely pronounced. That thing is going to talk back to you and it is going to give you stuff. Is it going to be the best advice? We can debate that. But there is something that's going to come out of that thing that is going to be at least the average of the internet,
So I
maybe
I
better.
actually I did this last night. I did not go pray at the altar of ChatGPT. Like I want to clarify that. Not yet. But
They're taking your $200, so they'll consider that the
yeah, no, I
equivalent.
mean technically maybe I'm giving my tithe. However, all that to say, I find myself very overwhelmed recently. Like there are so many balls that I am keeping in the air. And I've got a bunch of engineers that are working for me all of a sudden, which is amazing, but also I have to kind of tailor what I'm asking to each individual person. I have 3 kids that are going constantly in different directions. We're doing, I'm out looking for a little bit of extra contracting to supplement our income. There's just all this stuff going on. So I sat down, and I hate to-do lists. I always try to go use the newest thing, Tick Tick, or I don't know if you remember the milk. There's all these things that I have tried in the past, and I use them for about 2 weeks, and then I just stop using them because it just pisses me off. And so I put all the things I have to do into ChatGPT, and I was like, what the heck should I do with this? And all of a sudden it comes back with, what you really want is a repository for your thoughts and tasks and appointments. And I was like, oh, you're right. Like, I had not actually put it into that perspective. And I ended up having this really interesting conversation with ChatGPT, where it's like, well, what if you use these specific apps, they have integrations into Zapier, and you could take everything and do it here. And I was like, it's a really interesting idea. Now, some of the suggestions aren't true. Like, it said that Google Keep has a Zapier integration, and it does not.
That's
So
crazy.
there.
It would give you the wrong information. That's nuts.
Oh, shocking. Which, oh God, which never happens in prayer.
Yeah.
So,
But in this case, you may be confusing God with a personal assistant when you're talking
right.
about
But
tasks
what
and
I'm getting
appointments.
at, no, no, you're right. That's eventually, it's like, oh, I just want somebody to do this work for me. However, what it was the actual act of writing it down and then having a little bit of a back and forth that really clarified how this thing could work and what it would be like if it did. And so I do agree with you. There are definitely times where, as I said, I'll sit down and pray. And I I don't get any kind of feedback or an answer, but my thoughts are more ordered when I'm finished. And it's useful. It's very useful. Some people meditate to do that. Like, there's all kinds of ways that this is very advantageous.
Yeah, and I've heard in the realm of sort of meditation, which would come closer to prayer, is that there's forms where you just try to focus on the breath and focus on one thing and not let thoughts jump in your head. But I've
Mhm.
read or heard about other forms where the idea is to let thoughts loose, let it roam,
Mhm.
and let it go out and sort of organize itself. So that's kind of super interesting, right? Like you turn on ChatGPT on with the audio mode and just let it rip. Now, I found that to be like usually fairly bland,
Yeah.
but there's sometimes where it like says the obvious, and the obvious is what it should be.
Yeah.
So we were
Well,
having a
and
chat with my daughter about like letting her sleep late or something along those lines.
right.
And the ChatGPT came back and said something so obvious, like, "Well, you should consider the trade-offs between like being more social late at night and the lacks of sleep that you have if you don't get enough sleep and how bad you feel the next morning." It's like,
Yeah.
well, yeah, we knew that, and it's like there's probably not much more to it than that. So,
I'm looking for wisdom, not trite, regurgitation of something that everybody kind of knows.
but maybe that's the wisdom. Maybe the wisdom is you're overthinking it.
Yeah.
It's really just as simple as it's just two sides
Yeah.
to it and be done.
And I think that wisdom is actually what a lot of people are seeking when they pray, is this idea of, how do I handle life better? And so in some aspect, I think prayer might be a thing. So, all right, here's how we're going to do this. We're going to do this, the 1 to 4 right now on this particular topic. So 1 to 4, will AI replace prayer? But in this instance, what we're really talking about is, will AI give you wisdom in some way, such as a prayer session?
I'm gonna go with a 2 on that one. I
Okay.
think there's low impact. I think for those that are religious in a way that they have a personal relationship with a divine entity, I don't think that's going to do much for anyone. But I think for those that are looking for clarifying their thoughts, and it's more a meditative thing, this could have legs. And
Mhm.
maybe it won't have the best wisdom ever, but maybe sometimes a little more wisdom than what you have is sufficient and good enough.
Yeah.
So like, I think similar to when we were talking about teachers, we don't necessarily have to try to make it better than the best teacher, but maybe we have to make it better than the bottom
Yeah.
quartile of teachers, and there's like quarter of humanity can then benefit from it.
Mhm. Yeah, I think if I take the deity aspect, the religious and holy aspect out of prayer, I give it a 3. Just in the sense of a lot of times sitting down with the intent of asking a question order can reorder and give you good order for your thoughts. And the fact that there is a bounce back, meaning there's like, somebody says, oh yeah, maybe you should try this. Even if you don't try that, oftentimes it forces you to start problem solving in a different way. And I think that like some of the better models are actually pretty good at that. So I would get set it at a 3.
Could you do something really wacky? So even let's say you are religious and you have a meaningful experience with prayer. Could
Mhm.
you have a chat with GPT about your prayer beforehand, and then organize your topics and thoughts in a much
Sure,
better way?
I'll do it. Chat GPT, how do I overcome the
Right, best
world?
of both worlds. I'm
Right?
almost half serious on this, right? In the sense that you
It's not a
can
bad idea.
you can organize your thoughts, you can get some actual thinking going in there, and then you can continue and get your internal and external inspiration from what you normally do with some additional input to it.
It's really in some aspects it's two forms of a different type of meditation. Now I want to point out if Chat GPT starts feeling like God to you, it might be time to slow down. Like maybe you should dial that back a little bit. But
Your own morality to it, right? So whatever comes back should come through that lens.
right.
And when it tells you to go to a pizza place armed and try and like take some bad people out, maybe think that through a
Woo!
bit more.
They keep the children in the basement. So that actually moves us into the next topic, which is people rely on God, rely on religion for moral direction. And it's a similar but slightly different thing here. As opposed to, Lord, I have these problems, what do I do with them? It's, Lord, I really want to wrap my hands around this person's throat. Is that a good idea or not? Right.
This is scary because you don't know how this is going to go. Like, this could be
uh,
much better than some people's morality, and it's like, yeah, just listen to what Chad said. What you're saying is insane, and don't even think about it.
right.
But you've read about things where chat goes off the rails and then tells you to do crazy stuff, and then you have to
Yeah.
apply some human morality and not so common sense and be like, no, 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 we're not doing that.
So my thought on this one is that we are when you talk about something like an LLM, the initial training data is often it's all of human morality. Like if you really want to get down to what is the moral training, what is the moral compass of the LLM, it is number one, anything on the internet it can read. I don't know if you've been to Reddit. There's a lot of stuff there that I would not classify as moral,
Yeah.
right?
Did it also scan 4chan?
I hope not, but maybe it did. Like who knows at this point? And then you combine that with the strictures of the system prompt, right? And a lot of times the system prompts are, they have lovely promises in them like do no evil, don't harm people, blah 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 blah. And you end up in the situation invariably at some point where what was it? Gemini was threatening the life of someone recently. Did you read that?
I did not.
So there was, yeah,
Doesn't surprise
Gemini.
me.
Gemini had a thing where it was talking with someone and all of a sudden it just went evil and it said this message is for you and you only. You should not exist, and I something along the lines of I am going to take steps to make sure that outcome is
Wow.
the only outcome. It was full Terminator
And then I'm
bad.
gonna go make some paper clips.
Yeah,
More
yes,
paper
yes.
clips.
So
That's scary.
morality,
So that like I think my approach into this that's just been strengthened by what you said was I think you kind of have to go precautionary principle on this.
right?
Like you cannot ever do what the AI says without really thinking it through. But I wonder if that has to be the only filter you have because unless you just never listen to the AI, in which case what's the point? There's so going to be some people that listen to the AI, but what the AI told them is so persuasive that even when they put their probably should be applied and ignore the AI filter, that still goes through, and then they do something actually crazy.
Yeah,
So I don't. I think we're kind of stuck with this, right? I think we're gonna
yeah,
still have to rely on people having some sense of morality and being able to override the AI, and sometimes that's going to go wrong. But I mean, I don't know. That goes wrong now anyway, right? Some people go on to become murderers and serial killers and go shoot up a school, and you're never going to be able to get rid of that because some people just
mhm.
can't think for themselves.
Well, and really at the base of this, a lot of people when they go seek external moral direction, not everybody. I mean, certainly not everybody. There's a large group of people that when they go seek, and maybe even it's most people, when they go seek external moral direction, they're really interested in the answer. But there's a lot of people that if they get just the littlest bit of justification, it will it justifies the behavior that they already kind of know is wrong. And I have zero trust that chat gpt and claude and these llms and really any llm in the future is able to make moral decisions. I think, like you
Yeah.
said, it can give you trite advice and trite justifications, but I think inherently most people know what right and wrong is. I mean, there's certainly a subset of people that they don't work that way.
Yeah,
That
and the one
goes
thing that I left out as you're talking about this is mental illness, right? That's one aspect that like it's not that you don't have the right morality or you have the wrong morality, is that your brain it just isn't working quite right for that point in time, and that combo is going to be not great.
yeah. And like let me directly speak to that. As someone with a mental illness, right? I'm bipolar. Even at my worst, even at the times when I was horribly depressed or horribly manic, I still knew what was right and wrong. I just didn't need that much justification to engage in it. And so I really do believe that at people's hearts there is this idea of what the morality of what the moral decision is, and oftentimes it is somewhat like it is very context dependent. Like if you're raised in the South, you're going to have a different moral compass than somebody that's raised in California or somebody that's raised in Saudi Arabia. But I think people still at their base know what's right and wrong. Like I said, there is a group of folks that are pretty high on the psychopathy scale that that's not how it
Right. There's
works.
probably scales for all of these, right? You probably have
Right.
like different ranges of like the aspect of being bipolar that might
Yeah.
like tip you over or not.
Right.
So that'd
So,
be a concern. So I don't know. On this one, I would
what's
probably
your
rank it like 1 or 0. Like it
Yep.
doesn't seem like a good idea. It doesn't seem like we should do
Yep.
it. And
I'm
I,
right
I
there
think
with
also
you.
for folks that are religious in in the regular way, I should say. I don't think the idea of talking to a human-made neural network is going to sound right to them or be like, oh yeah, that sounds like. I think there's different value systems that they would have that they would place their trust in their religious system of belief. That is just like that. I think yeah, that's not for me for
Yeah.
sure.
I'm going to give it a 1. I think if you're just going to an LLM with, the intent of picking up moral advice, I think you're going to be in a world of hurt. I think that you'll find the justification you're looking for. So it's definitely not a good idea. Like I'm with you. I give it a 1 or a 0. I think you're like rolling the dice to
Yeah.
see if you're going to get good moral advice. But that does bring us to an interesting point of companionship. Is there, like, will AI replace this idea of like religious companionship? And you had mentioned this one, so I want to like let you kind of dive into it for us.
I'm a both a 1 and a 4 on this, just to give away the my thinking, right? I think
Okay.
there are it does not even remotely come close to replacing actual human beings for a number of
Mm.
ways that should be
Right.
relatively obvious that it's not real. And the depth and the types of conversations and relationships you're having are not real, and they're not there, and all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
So I think from that aspect, it's also like a 0 or a 1 is nothing. Um, not there. And I'd also like, if you're looking at it from the angle of religion, that doesn't do that, right? It's not the
No.
community that you have. It's not the people that you
Yeah.
have that you go do stuff with. It
Yeah.
doesn't like fit in your life in the same way. I don't think most people would get the same level of satisfaction from it. So big
Right.
fat no on that one. On the other hand, if you're someone that is like an introvert and you don't go out and you don't have friends and you don't have that, does that provide some kind of level of interaction that you might find beneficial? Is it someone to shoot the breeze with that you didn't have otherwise?
Yeah.
Maybe it's just a replacement that then further prevents you from going out and the changes in your life to get there. So
Mhm.
maybe that is making it worse. But I could kind of see where it may have some use cases that it makes it better. It's rife with problems, right? Like there's those cases where people think this is going to be my new girlfriend or my new boyfriend, and there's someone's with tragic outcomes from that when it went south, and because you don't know what to expect from it. um, but like there is an opening where I could say maybe potentially something could be there in the future. Maybe it's not a 4. Maybe it's a little lower than a 4.
Sure.
What?
I I do think this is getting into the territory of something is better than nothing. And but I'm also leery of ejecting this idea that humans need human contact. It is like I believe it is a biological imperative for us that as a social species, we have to have other people involved in our lives. But if you're in a situation where that other person doesn't exist, you are for a recluse, for whatever reason you're isolated and alone, this is probably better than the alternative. And going back to some of the things we've been talking about where you're looking for wisdom, you're looking for moral direction, this almost gets into the territory of like, hey, I'm kind of looking for a friend and a therapist at the same time. And I actually think there's some potential benefits from that. I so I don't know if you've ever heard of the Enneagram scale. So the Enneagram is this crazy, crazy thing. It's kind of BS, but kind of not, sort of useful. But the idea is there's like 1 through 9, and everybody pegs into one of the numbers. And so, like, I'm a 7, and a 7 is basically the person that just wants to go out and have fun 24/7, right? Which fits, right? Like, I'm so tired of being my wife's arm candy.
I heard
you
she
know,
gave you that shirt.
she very much did not give me this shirt. She hates it when I wear this shirt. But my wife is a 6. And sixes, in a lot of ways, are very dissimilar to sevens. Like, they tend to be introverts. They tend to be very deliberative about everything versus, sevens will make spur of the moment decisions. And so, on a whim the other day, I typed into, once again, ChatGPT. I was like, how do you show love to a 6 on the Enneagram scale? It actually had some really good ideas. And it had this weird feel of talking to a therapist where, I'm like, hey, I want to care for my wife. I want to meet her where she is as opposed to where I want her to be. How is it that I can make her feel loved and protected and cherished and all these things that we do in these relationships? And it actually had good advice, And then I was like, okay, well, how do a 7 and a 6 live together? And it was less good at that one. it was less good. There's only so far you can push these things, but I actually thought it was kind of useful in that aspect. So I think on that, I would end, like you said, a 1 and a 4. I think if you really look at it from one of two sides, one is I'm lonely. Like I need somebody to talk to. I need somebody to bounce ideas off of. And I've been that person. It's better. It's a 4. It's better than the being lonely or the alternative of taking some kind of drastic action, which is often in the realm of possibility at that point. So I would say that's a 4. However, it's not a it's not the best replacement, because the best replacement is a person that is emotionally healthy and will treat you with respect and dignity and allow you to be as you are. On the other hand, and I don't even want to get into will AI be my girlfriend or boyfriend, because I think that gets really weird really fast. I do think there's an aspect where if all you do is seek companionship from this AI entity, a la her, that's really bad. That's really bad. People need people. And so if you're in a position where you don't have people and you just need someone, then I think it's a 4. But if you then use that thing to block you from going out to find people, I think that's bad. I think that's a 1. So
So I guess you can split the question though, right, as to should it and will it? Because if you go with will it, it's solid 4 because it's going to happen and it's probably already happening.
yeah.
If you then ask the question of is it a good idea, then that might be well lower than a 4 in
Well,
some cases, right? There might be some
yeah.
cases where it's fine, and maybe some cases where it's like no, terrible idea, go outside.
It was Reid Hoffman. He's got a really interesting take on AI. And, he basically said there's a lot of use for these things in mental health care, where oftentimes you get pretty decent advice because the body of knowledge for, psychology is pretty well published and well understood. And they're just immediately available. Whereas, I have been in psychological crises where, everything's not good. And sometimes having to wait to go get to the person that is going to kind of help you frame everything in a better way is awful. Some of the most excruciating times of my life. And so having somebody there immediate, it's kind of useful. So,
Yeah. And maybe that like in a few years that gets a little bit better. Maybe that's past the threshold where it,
yeah,
it can overall, because again it's a probabilistic game, right? Is it going to be
right.
better for most people? Is it not going to be awful for anyone, and that sort of
Yeah.
thing?
Yeah, and the way that I see something like psychology is I'm not going to a psychologist to necessarily fix my moral compass like we were talking about in the last one, but I am going to a psychologist to understand myself and other people better. And turns out these things are actually kind of okay at that. So, all right, we're going to hit on the last one here. Will AI replace God when it comes to improving my life? And this one is really, really interesting, because if you listen to Sam Altman or the gentleman that is currently running Claude, for any amount of time, they will sell you a vision of utopia. Like they will sell you this idea that, once we hit AGI, which by the way, nobody can define and may just arrive and nobody will even notice, contrary to what they say, then it's gonna do all the things that nobody else wants to do, and we will all live a life of ease.
In that
And
sense, though, I don't think it would be competing with God in any way, right? Because I think people that go to God mostly are in there for spiritual things, and therefore you could have AI, code for you, fix your calendar, be your assistant, be your therapist, be your teacher, but there's still a place for those that lean that way to have their spiritual needs met by something completely different. And again,
yeah,
is there going to be some kind of cult that has the cult of the AI?
yes,
Probably.
there probably already is.
There's already a cult of Elon, right? So why not, the cult of ChatGPT or Claude?
There's an entire cult of people that believe the Earth and the Moon are hollow, and that there are advanced
No, that's
civilizations
true,
living in
Michael.
them. Huh?
That is actually true. That is actually true. Don't joke about that.
He's stuffy. I mean, I saved one Instagram reel because it was so absurd I was going to respond to it. And now all of a sudden I'm getting the crazies regularly in my Instagram feed, which has been very illuminative, I will say.
I once came up on the webpage, the Facebook group of flat earthers, and it
Oh,
said where flat earthers all around the globe come and chat or something like along those lines.
so it tossed a flat earth thing at me. And the guy was like, okay, here's the thought experiment. I can prove to you that the earth is not round. Take a helicopter to 10,000 feet and let it hover for 10 hours. It will still be in the same place. And I was like, you don't understand how gravity wells work, do you?
Yeah.
Like,
Also, I don't think you can stand in the same place with a helicopter because it makes
right. Yes. So,
those little
anyways,
techniques. Have fun with that one.
yeah, no, the way that I kind of look at this is like so my take on this is probably a little more jaded than yours, ironically. There is an entire branch of fundamentalist Christianity that is it's called various things. It's called the Word of Faith movement. It's called Name It, Claim It. It's called the
So much
Prosperity
for not keeping
Gospel.
this controversial, Michael.
All right, but hold on. These people literally go in and they believe that if they give enough and pray the right prayers, they're going to get rich. And I think that there are people that can and will go to these LLMs to do that. And we've already seen it where you've got people that are saying, hey, I have $1,000. I'm going to do whatever you tell me to do, but I have to make money. And it's actually worked for some people. Have you seen any of these folks that have talked about this?
No, but if that actually works, why are we not going to go try that like after this recording? I don't
Because
think it's that simple, right? If it was that easy to
no, it's not.
make money, I would be doing it. But I think it's generally a bit more complicated. I'm going to give you some business advice, and I've used it to run business ideas and say, hey, do what you think of this, and it's
Yeah.
usually pretty good because it will brainstorm. Like if I have a business idea, I've been around the block enough that I know the 5 things I need to do about this thing, but I can say brainstorm with me, and it will give me another 20. Now, half of them will be junk, like they don't apply to me, but maybe I'll get another couple that might be some good thing to chase down.
Yeah.
So I think in that aspect, it's. But continue your thought. Right? Your thought was that this
Yeah.
will play a factor.
So I think that there is an entire group of people, and this is not religious by any stretch of the imagination, because some of these people are Sam Altman and a bunch of other folks that at the very least profess that they believe that artificial intelligence through large language models, because we have to understand that LLMs are just a branch of AI in general, that they believe that AI through LLMs is going to fix most of the problems in the world, that it can and will usher in a utopia. And that utopia often has very similar, it has a lot of similarities to things like heaven, where everybody just gets along and everybody is taken care of, and nobody needs money because the things it's just magically produced, right? And I very much do not believe that AI is going to do that. Like, if I put this on a scale of 1 to 4, I'm like, no. Like,
I, mean,
people
I
can
would go a step
believe.
further than that, right? I think that idea of a utopia for me doesn't even make sense,
No,
right? Like I think people are curious and lazy, but they will try different things, right? A place where all your problems are solved and you get to do nothing is not going to. People are going to find new problems. People are going to find new things to tackle. So I think maybe you will have fewer problems, or the problems that you perceive you have today you're not going to have, but then you're going to
yeah,
have a different set of problems.
I
And
agree.
people are going to be very entrepreneurial in that way and try and solve their problems. So it's going to look different for sure. Like, good luck predicting what it's going to be like 20 or 50
Yeah,
years from now. Although that is entirely what we do in this podcast.
it is
Um,
100%. So,
but
uh,
yeah, it's not going to be this place where you have if you set the idea that let me say you have a minimum viable income for everyone, and people don't have to work for food or shelter, and you have their basic needs met, then everyone is going to want, a better Netflix, or they're going to want to be able to travel the world more, or they want, lobster every day instead of pineapple and caviar, or whatever the case may
Whatever
be
it
there.
is.
So
Yeah.
people's needs are going to change, and what we consider to be basic needs now is not going to be basic needs then.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't
I,
see. I mean, I see the AI making a positive change, but I don't think that's like. And then that's the end game. And once the AI is fully sentient, then now we're done.
yeah. Then at that point, yes, which is why we find ourselves attempting to curry favor with our future AI robotic overlords. Yeah, I mean, if I look at this one, and if I actually do try to bring it back into, do people look to God to better their lives? I give, do people look to AI? I give that one, like, the possibility that AI replaces God in that equation, that AI says, you know, if I rely on the AI, my life is going to get better. I put that at a very solid 4 right now. However, I think we're still in the hype cycle up curve, and I suspect that that will go to 1 at some point in the future, and then probably level out at a 2 or a 3. So
Yeah, and again, it's. I think the question there is it replacing God? Because I think for a lot of people, no way in hell. Maybe that's not the right expression. No way it is replacing God, because that is a big thing in their life for different ways and different reasons. But it could be augmenting it for some of them, or it could be for some other group of people be playing a similar role for them, even though it's not, they didn't have a belief in God, but like that takes
yeah,
that role of some similarities of what religiosity provides for people.
yeah, I agree. And I think there are people, look, I mean, shoot, you and I use AI on a regular basis to improve our life by writing a bunch of the code that we know we can write. We just don't want to.
Yeah, so I think we can end with an idea for a future episode, which was, will AI replace government? Is it the, instead of
Oh
coming up
God,
with the
no. That's
commandments,
more
is
dangerous
it going to
than
be telling you
God.
what to do? Well, Elon's telling you what to do now, so step
Woo!
further, he'll
Yeah.
buy OpenAI, and then he'll tell you what to do in a different way.
Oh my. Ladies and gentlemen, and with that, we would like to thank you for coming along on this wild journey that is Will AI Snap That? Once again, my name is Michael Rollins. My friend here is Thanos, he of the Snapdom. And you can tune in for more. By the way, if you are one of our fans, if you wouldn't mind liking and sharing and subscribing and going to the website and telling people about us, it truly does help the podcast. We would like to grow exponentially and are going to build the business model with AI next week. Thank you, Thanos, for coming along, and we shall see you next week.
Catch you next week.